The rain hammered against the windows of Le Bernardin, Manhattan's most exclusive French restaurant, as Sophia Williams sat alone at table 7, her manicured fingers wrapped around a glass of Chablis. At 30, she commanded boardrooms and billion-dollar deals, but tonight, she was just a woman on her first blind date in 8 years. When the door opened, a mountain of a man entered, a black single dad with water dripping from his broad shoulders, holding the hand of an 8-year-old black girl whose warm brown skin glowed under the restaurant lights and whose halo of soft curls caught the light like moonlight around her face. The child's deep golden brown eyes locked onto Sophia's, tears spilling instantly. "Daddy, it's her," the woman with the moonlight hair. Before anyone could react, the girl broke free, rushing to Sophia, grasping her hands with desperate certainty. "You're my real mom. I remember you." Sophia Williams had built an empire from ashes, but the cost had been everything that truly mattered. 8 years ago, she'd been a brilliant 22-year-old Stanford student, 3 months from graduating, summa cum laude with a double major in computer science and business. The pregnancy test had changed everything in 3 minutes. Daniel Chen, her boyfriend of 2 years, the man who'd promised her forever under the campus oak trees, had turned cold at the news. "I'm not ready for this," he'd said, backing away from her dorm room as if pregnancy were contagious. "My parents expect me to go to Harvard Law. A baby doesn't fit the plan." She never saw him again. The confrontation with her family had been worse. Victoria Williams, matriarch of the Williams pharmaceutical fortune, had summoned Sophia to the family estate in Pacific Heights. The mansion overlooked San Francisco Bay, every room a testament to old money and older traditions. Her mother sat behind the massive mahogany desk, diamonds glittering at her throat, delivering her verdict with surgical precision. "You'll terminate the pregnancy immediately. Dr. Morrison has an opening tomorrow, then you'll finish your degree and join the company as planned. This unfortunate incident will be forgotten." Sophia had touched her still flat stomach, feeling the flutter of possibility within. "She's my daughter, Mother. I can already feel her." "Don't be dramatic," Victoria had snapped. "It's a cluster of cells, not a child. You're throwing away generations of achievement for a mistake." "Then I'll throw it away," Sophia had replied, steel in her voice. "But I'm keeping my baby." The disinheritance had been swift and complete. Cut off from trust funds, credit cards canceled, her Mercedes repossessed within hours. Sophia had moved from her luxury apartment to a studio in Oakland, working 3 jobs while finishing her degree online. Morning sickness during coding boot camp, swollen feet during 12-hour waitressing shifts. But every kick, every hiccup from within strengthened her resolve. She'd given birth at San Francisco General, the public hospital that accepted her Medicaid. No private suite, no attending physicians, just an overworked resident and a kind black nurse named Jessica who kept squeezing her hand and telling her she wasn't alone, even when the room felt like it was collapsing. Sophia had been alone, 22 years old, terrified and exhilarated in equal measure. When the contractions peaked, she'd sung to her baby, a lullaby she'd composed during those long, lonely months. "You are my Luna, my only Luna. You make me happy when skies are gray." The complications had come fast. Placental abruption, hemorrhaging, the world blurred red as doctors shouted orders. But Sophia had heard her daughter cry, one perfect sound that made everything worthwhile. She'd managed to slip the silver bracelet onto the tiny wrist, the one thing she'd splurged on, engraved with Luna in delicate script. "Mommy loves you," she had whispered as darkness crept in. "Don't forget me." She'd awakened to emptiness. The doctor spoke in hushed tones about infant mortality, about how sometimes these things happen despite their best efforts. No one would let her see her baby. "It's better this way," they said. "Closure can be traumatic." Her mother had appeared like a specter, handling arrangements with cold efficiency. The cremation was completed before Sophia could protest. There was nothing left to hold. No tiny fingers to count, no rosebud mouth to kiss, just a void where her heart used to be, and a silver bracelet returned to her in a sterile plastic bag. The next months were a haze of grief so profound it felt like drowning on dry land. Sophia had contemplated following her daughter into whatever came after, But on a particularly dark night, anger had sparked. If her family thought she'd crumble without them, they were wrong. If the universe had stolen her daughter, she'd build something that couldn't be taken. She'd started coding 18 hours a day, creating an AI algorithm that could detect infant health issues hours before traditional methods. Her rage fueled innovation. Her grief drove perfection. The startup, born from pain, had exploded when major hospitals recognized its life-saving potential. By 28, she'd taken Williams Tech Corporation public. By 30, she was worth $500 million, her name on Forbes lists and tech magazines. But every night, she still heard phantom cries. Her arms ached for the weight they'd never held. Her luxury penthouse felt like a mausoleum, every success a reminder of who wasn't there to share it. She'd bought a mansion but lived in one room. She'd funded children's hospitals but couldn't visit them. The silver bracelet lived in her bedside drawer, taken out nightly for tears that never stopped. Her assistant, Emma, a gentle soul who'd weathered Sophia's storms for 5 years, had finally staged an intervention. 8 years of mourning won't bring Luna back, she'd said softly, holding Sophia as she sobbed after another Mother's Day alone. But maybe it's time to let someone else in. You have so much love to give. The dating profile had been created against Sophia's explicit wishes. Emma had used an old photo, listed her as Sophie who worked in tech, downplaying the empire to attract genuine connections. Hundreds of messages had poured in, deleted unread until one caught her attention. Ryan Mitchell, 35, widowed father, raising his daughter alone. His message was brief but honest. I know what it's like to lose someone and keep going for the sake of a child. If you ever want to talk to someone who understands that particular kind of tired, I'm here. Something in those simple words had cracked her armor. She'd agreed to one dinner, telling herself it meant nothing, that she was only pacifying Emma. But as she sat in Le Bernardin, watching rain streak the windows, her hands trembled with possibilities she hadn't felt in 8 years. Ryan Mitchell had never planned on fatherhood, let alone single fatherhood. 8 years of Navy SEAL training had prepared him for warfare in distant countries, for surviving on nothing, for protecting his nation. A black man who'd learned to move through dangerous terrain and hostile environments, he'd never imagined the hardest terrain he'd navigate would be school pickup lines and parent-teacher conferences. Nothing had prepared him for warming bottles at 3 a.m, or learning the difference between hungry cries and tired cries. He stood 6'2", 220 pounds of muscle, earned through discipline and sacrifice, with deep brown skin, close-cropped curls, and hands that could break bones, but had learned to braid hair with infinite gentleness. Life had been straightforward before the call that shattered everything. He'd been stationed at a forward operating base in Afghanistan, 3 months into his 4th deployment. His unit had just returned from a successful mission when the Red Cross notification came through. Emergency leave, family death. The words hadn't computed. His parents had passed years ago. His only family was Jessica, his baby sister, who'd become a pediatric nurse to save lives, not lose her own. The flight home was a blur of disbelief. Jessica, 26 years old, brilliant and compassionate, had been hit by a drunk driver on her way home from a night shift. She'd lived long enough to make her wishes clear. In her apartment, between medical textbooks and scrubs, was a 2-month-old baby girl she'd recently adopted. Her will, updated just weeks before, was specific. If anything happened to her, Ryan was to take the baby. He'd known about the adoption, of course. Jessica had called him crying with joy about the abandoned infant she'd helped save. She was just left at the hospital, Ryan, can you imagine? But I knew the moment I held her that she was meant to be mine. She'd sent photos of a remarkable black baby girl with warm brown skin, bright, unusual eyes flecked with gold, and a head of soft curls that caught the light like moonlight. She'd named her Lena, meaning light, because that's what the baby had brought to her life after her own miscarriage. Honorable discharge had been immediate. The Navy understood. A SEAL couldn't serve effectively while raising an infant. Ryan had traded combat boots for baby shoes, returning to find a 2-month-old girl who stared at him with eyes that seemed to see through to his soul. The adoption papers Jessica had filed were sparse. Baby girl, approximately 2 weeks old when found, no identifying information except a note in block letters. Please love her. Those first years had been a brutal education. Ryan had moved into Jessica's small San Jose apartment, surrounded by her presence. Her nursing textbooks became his parenting guides. Her laptop still had bookmarked articles about infant development. He'd learned through YouTube videos and desperate 3 a.m. Google searches how to burp a baby, how to know if the cry meant hunger or discomfort, how to install a car seat, how to be both mother and father to a child who'd already lost so much. His SEAL team brothers had mocked him at first, the warrior turned nurturer. Then they'd shown up one by one, bringing diapers and formula, teaching him that strength meant more than physical power. Tank taught him lullabies his grandmother had sung. Rodriguez demonstrated the football hold for colicky babies. Williams, who had 4 kids, showed him how to baby-proof an apartment. They became uncles to a little girl who collected protectors like other children collected toys. Lena had been extraordinary from the start. She'd spoken in full sentences by 18 months, startling grocery store clerks with articulate observations. By 3, she drew complex pictures with startling detail. By 6, she tested with an IQ of 150, placing her in the gifted range that required special educational consideration. But it was her dreams that unsettled Ryan most. The lady with moonlight hair visited again, she'd announce over breakfast, describing the same woman repeatedly. A woman who sang to her, who smelled like expensive flowers and rain. A woman who cried and apologized in languages Lena shouldn't know. She drew the same face obsessively, hundreds of sketches covering her bedroom walls. She drew the woman in various settings, but always with the same sad eyes, the same reaching arms. Ryan had taken her to child psychologists, worried about trauma from her abandonment. But the doctors found a well-adjusted, brilliant child with an active imagination. Some children create elaborate inner worlds, one had explained. As long as she's otherwise healthy and happy, consider it a creative outlet. Dating had been impossible. How did you explain to women that your daughter was your entire world? That you worked as a personal trainer, not for glory, but for flexible hours that allowed school pickup? That your 2-bedroom apartment, its walls lined with Lena's art and photos of their beautiful black family, was filled with art supplies and science projects instead of bachelor amenities? That bedtime stories were non-negotiable? That Saturday mornings meant pancakes shaped like dinosaurs? That you knew every Disney princess song by heart? Most women had run when they realized he came with permanent baggage. The ones who stayed often tried too hard, attempting to replace a mother Lena had never known, or worse, resenting the attention she required. Ryan had stopped trying after the 3rd disastrous relationship, accepting that some people were meant to be alone. But loneliness wasn't why he'd finally tried online dating. It was Lena coming home from a Mother's Day event at school with red eyes and slumped shoulders. She'd made a card for Jessica, for the aunt she barely remembered, but watching other children with their mothers had broken something inside her. "Why don't I have a mom like everyone else?" she'd sobbed into his chest. "Did I do something wrong? Is that why she left me?" He'd held her while she cried, feeling like a failure despite 8 years of doing everything possible. That night, after she'd finally slept, he'd created a profile on a dating site Emma from the gym had recommended. He'd been brutally honest about his situation, posting pictures of himself with Lena, explaining he was a package deal. Hundreds of women had viewed it. 3 had responded, only 1 with understanding instead of polite rejection. Sophia hadn't given a last name, had written simply, "I understand loss and the shapes it carves into your life. I understand that children aren't baggage, but blessings. If you ever want to talk to someone who gets it, I'm here." They'd messaged for 2 weeks before agreeing to meet. She'd been honest about her own loss, though vague about details. A daughter, she'd said, gone too soon. The pain still fresh after years. He'd felt a connection through screens and carefully chosen words, recognizing a kindred spirit in grief transformed to purpose. Le Bernardin intimidated Ryan from the moment the valet took his 10-year-old Toyota Camry with barely concealed disdain. His dress shoes, polished but old, clicked too loudly on marble floors. The suit bought for Jessica's funeral 8 years ago pulled tight across shoulders that had grown broader from years of demonstrating proper form to clients. Lena wore her favorite pink dress, the one they'd sewn together when she'd outgrown everything else mid-month before payday. He'd managed to tame her curls, those soft coils that caught the light like moonlight, into a neat braid. Jessica's YouTube tutorials finally paying off. The hostess led them through a maze of white tablecloths and crystal glasses that cost more than his monthly grocery budget. Other diners glanced up, taking in the mismatched pairs before returning to conversations about stock portfolios and vacation homes. Ryan felt every thread of his Ross dress for less suit, every scuff on Lena's Target shoes. He also felt the familiar weight of being one of the only black men in a room built for old money, the subtle double takes he'd long since learned to ignore. What was he doing here in this temple to wealth he'd never possess? Then he saw her. Sophie waited at a corner table, and his breath caught hard enough to hurt. The photo hadn't done her justice. She looked like she'd stepped from the pages of those magazines in grocery store checkout lines, the ones promising secrets to perfect lives. Blonde hair swept into an elegant chignon that probably cost more than his hourly rate, a black dress that whispered designer labels, diamonds at her throat and wrist that caught the light like captured stars. But it was her eyes that held him, blue like winter sky, carrying a weight he recognized. The same exhaustion that looked back from his mirror, the bone-deep tired that came not from physical exertion, but from carrying loss every moment of every day. She stood as they approached, movements graceful but tentative, and he saw her hands tremble before she clasped them together. "I'm so sorry we're late," Ryan apologized, helping Lena with her chair, the wood probably worth more than his car. Traffic was brutal, and then Lena insisted on bringing her sketch pad. She doesn't go anywhere without it. "It's perfectly fine," Sophia replied, her voice cultured but warm like expensive whiskey. She studied him with intelligent eyes, taking in the cheap suit and calloused dark brown hands, the careful way he tended to Lena. There was no judgment in her gaze, only curiosity. "You must be Lena. Your father's told me wonderful things about you." But Lena wasn't listening. She stared at Sophia with an intensity that made Ryan's neck prickle with embarrassment. The sketch pad fell from her suddenly nerveless fingers, papers scattering across the pristine floor. Her small hands trembled as tears rolled down her cheeks, and she made a sound Ryan had never heard before, something between recognition and relief. "Lena, honey, what's wrong?" Ryan reached for her, alarmed by the reaction. In 8 years, he'd seen her cry from scraped knees and bad dreams, from missing Jessica and wondering about her birth parents. This was different. This was earth-shifting. "It's you," Lena whispered, her voice carrying certainty that belonged to someone decades older. "The lady from my dreams. You're real. You're finally real." The waiter appeared with leather-bound menus, speaking rapid French that might as well have been ancient Greek to Ryan. Sophia ordered for them without hesitation, her fluency making him feel even more out of place. She selected items he couldn't pronounce with prices that made his stomach clench. When she ordered a bottle of wine that cost $300 more than he spent on groceries in a month, he politely declined. "Just water for me. I am driving." He helped Lena with her napkin, the cloth softer than her bed sheets, noticing how Sophia watched his practiced movements. There was something hungry in her observation, as if she was memorizing every gesture. "Sorry, she doesn't usually act like this with strangers." "Lena, sweetheart, you need to apologize for staring." "I'm not a stranger," Lena protested, still fixated on Sophia with that unsettling intensity. "I know you. You sing 'You Are My Sunshine,' but you change the words. You make it sadder. You smell like flowers, expensive ones that come in black boxes. You have a tiny scar behind your left ear from when you fell off your pink bicycle when you were 7. Sophia's wine glass trembled, red liquid threatening to spill onto the pristine tablecloth. Her face had gone pale beneath expertly applied makeup. How could you possibly know about my scar or my bicycle? Ryan felt sweat bead on his forehead despite the restaurant's perfect climate control. This was beyond Lena's usual imaginative stories. Lena has an active imagination. She creates detailed stories about people she meets. It's a gifted kid thing. Her teachers say it's normal. It's not a story. Lena's voice rose, drawing glances from nearby tables. I dream about you all the time, every night since I can remember. You hold me and cry. You tell me you're sorry, that you didn't mean to let me go. You smell like rain and sadness and that perfume in the crystal bottle on your dresser. That's enough, Ryan said firmly, embarrassment burning through him. His daughter was making a scene in a restaurant where appetizers cost more than their weekly food budget. I apologize, Sophie. I mean, miss, I'm sorry, I just realized I don't know your last name. Williams, she said faintly, still staring at Lena. Sophia Williams. The name clicked with thunderous recognition. Ryan had seen it on magazine covers at the gym, heard clients discuss her company's IPO. You're Sophia Williams, the CEO of Williams Tech, the youngest woman to take a tech company public. The divide between them yawned wider than the Grand Canyon. She was worth hundreds of millions while he counted quarters for laundry. She wore designer clothes while he shopped at thrift stores, telling Lena it was treasure hunting. She lived in penthouses while they made do with 2 bedrooms and temperamental plumbing. What was he doing here? Pretending he belonged in her stratosphere? I should have been more transparent in my profile, Sophia admitted, seeming to shrink despite her perfect posture. My assistant thought I'd have better luck if people didn't Google me first. She said the money scared people away. You're rich? Lena asked with childhood directness that cut through adult pretense. Lena! Ryan's face burned hotter. We don't ask people about money. That's rude. It's okay, Sophia said softly, seeming amused by the child's honesty. A ghost of a smile played at her lips. Yes, I suppose I am financially comfortable. Very comfortable. Then why do you look so sad? Lena tilted her head, studying Sophia with those uncanny eyes. In movies, rich people are always happy. They have everything they want. The question pierced through social niceties to raw truth. Sophia's composed mask slipped for just a moment, revealing depths of pain that matched Ryan's own. Her fingers found the stem of her wineglass, turning it in careful circles. Money can't buy everything, sweetheart, Sophia whispered. It can't bring back the people we've lost. It can't fill the empty spaces they leave behind. Their food arrived in a choreographed dance of servers, each plate a work of art. Lena ignored her pasta, pushing it around while pulling out her sketch pad. She flipped through pages with determined purpose. Each one showed the same woman's face from different angles, in different settings, with different expressions, but always unmistakably the person sitting across from them. I've been drawing you since I was 3, Lena explained, showing Sophia the dates carefully printed in the corners. Ryan had taught her to date her artwork, thinking it was good practice. Now those dates seemed like evidence of something impossible. Daddy thought I was making up an imaginary friend, but I knew you were real. I knew you'd find me or I'd find you. I wasn't sure how it worked. The sketches were impossibly detailed for a child's work. Ryan had always been amazed by Lena's artistic talent, but seeing them spread across the table, he recognized things that made his skin prickle. One showed Sophia in a Stanford sweatshirt he'd bet she'd owned. Another depicted an office with a distinctive view. He recognized the Transamerica building in the background, the specific angle that would only be visible from certain floors. There were drawings of Sophia in a hospital bed, face twisted in pain, arms reaching for something outside the frame. This is impossible, Sophia breathed, lifting a sketch with shaking hands. It showed her younger, belly swollen with pregnancy, hands cradling the bump. I've never shared photos from then. No one has seen. How did you? Yes, you did, Lena said simply, matter of fact, in the way only children could be when stating universal truths. To me. You called me your Luna, your little moon. You put something silver on my wrist and sang until everything went dark. But I remember all of it. Ryan watched Sophia's face crumble like ancient architecture finally succumbing to time. She fumbled with her designer purse, hands shaking so badly she nearly upended it onto the table. Finally, she pulled out a small velvet box, the kind that usually held engagement rings. Inside, cushioned on black silk, lay a delicate silver bracelet with Luna engraved in script so fine it looked like whispered words. "This was my daughter's," she whispered, voice breaking into sharp pieces. "She died 8 years ago, right after birth. They told me she never took a breath, never opened her eyes, never had a chance." Lena stood up from her chair with unusual grace, moving around the table with purpose that belonged to someone much older. She studied the bracelet, then pushed up the sleeve of her pink dress. There, on her tiny brown wrist, was a faint, circular scar lighter than the surrounding skin. "It was too tight as I grew," she said matter-of-factly. "Aunt Jessica had to cut it off when I was 1. She saved it, but it got lost when we moved. But I remember it. I remember you putting it on me. You were crying and bleeding, and someone kept saying code blue, but you wouldn't let go. You kept singing about sunshine and gray skies and how I'd never know how much you loved me." "This is insane," Ryan interjected, his world tilting off its axis. He pulled Lena back, protective instinct overriding confusion. Sophia, I'm sorry. Lena's never met her birth parents. She creates these elaborate fantasies. We should go. This was a mistake." "No." Lena struggled in his arms with strength born of desperation. "Daddy, please. She's my real mom. I know it. I can feel it here." She pressed her small hand over her heart, right where she'd always said the dream lady lived. "Look at me," Sophia begged, falling to her knees on the restaurant floor, $1,000 dress forgotten. Social propriety meant nothing compared to the possibility dancing just out of reach. "Do you have a birthmark? A crescent moon shape?" Lena pushed her curls aside without hesitation, revealing a distinctive mark behind her right ear. It was pale pink, shaped like a waning moon, exactly where Sophia's trembling fingers pointed to an identical mark on her own skin. "It's hereditary," she whispered, tears streaming unchecked down her face. "Every Williams woman has it. My mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, me, and Luna would have had it too. The doctors confirmed it during ultrasounds." The elegant restaurant faded away as 3 lives hung suspended in possibility. Other diners stared, but Ryan couldn't care about their judgment. He saw the truth in Sophia's tears, in Lena's certainty, in the matching birthmarks and impossible knowledge. His sister Jessica had always said Lena was special, that she'd come to them for a reason. "Some babies choose their families," she'd told him once. "Lena chose us to keep her safe until her real story could begin." "We need answers," Sophia said, standing with sudden determination. Her CEO persona slammed back into place, steel beneath silk. Real answers, not what they told me 8 years ago, not lies dressed as comfort. The valet had barely returned with Ryan's old Camry when Sophia was already on her phone, voice sharp with authority that could move mountains. "I need the entire legal team mobilized now. Yes, I know what time it is. I pay you specifically to not care what time it is. I want every record from San Francisco General from March 3rd, 2016. Every signature, every form, every security tape. If someone sneezed in that hospital that night, I want to know about it." They drove in Sophia's Tesla, a car that cost more than Ryan had made in the last 3 years combined. Lena sat between them in the back seat, holding both their hands like she was afraid they'd disappear if she let go. The child hummed softly, a melody that made Sophia gasp and squeeze her hand tighter. "That's the lullaby I created for her," she whispered to Ryan over Lena's head. "I never sang it to anyone else, never hummed it, never wrote it down. It was our secret song just for my Luna. I made it up during labor between contractions." "How does she know it?" San Francisco General Hospital looked different at night, fluorescent emergency signs casting harsh shadows across cracked concrete. Sophia's lawyers had worked magic, or more likely thrown enough money at the right people, getting them immediate access to records that should have taken court orders and months of legal wrangling to obtain. Money might not buy happiness, but it could definitely buy speed when every moment counted. The hospital administrator, a tired-looking man roused from bed, met them in the records room. He'd clearly dressed in a hurry, shirt buttoned wrong, hair still bearing pillow marks. Miss Williams, I understand you're looking for files from 8 years ago. That's quite unusual. Most records that old are in deep storage. My daughter was born here on March 3rd, Sophia stated, every word carved from ice. I was told she died. I never saw her body. I need to see every record from that night. Every patient, every admission, every discharge, everything. Hours passed in a blur of medical charts and faded signatures. Ryan held Lena as she dozed, her head on his shoulder, occasionally murmuring in her sleep. He watched Sophia transform from wounded woman to fierce warrior. She commanded her team of lawyers and assistants with precision, following paper trails with relentless determination. This was the woman who'd built an empire. This was what $500 million worth of success looked like when it had a purpose. Here, one lawyer announced, holding up a folder like he'd found the Holy Grail. 2 infant girls were treated in the NICU that night. One was baby Morrison, parents Sarah and Tom Morrison, healthy, discharged the next morning. The other, he paused, frowning at the paperwork. Baby Williams, mother Sophia Williams, marked deceased at 11:47 p.m. But look at this. Another lawyer interjected, pointing at the forms. There's no attending physician's signature on the death certificate. It was filed 6 hours later by... That's odd. The signature is illegible, completely unreadable. Sophia snatched the papers, scanning rapidly with eyes trained to catch inconsistencies in code and contracts. The time of death was changed. See the eraser marks? Someone used correction fluid, but you can still see the original numbers underneath. And this notation about extreme measures and successful resuscitation has been crossed out with black marker. There's more, the administrator said slowly, pulling up digital records on an ancient computer. An infant Jane Doe was admitted to pediatric emergency at 12:15 a.m. on March 4th. No parents, no identification, just a note that said, "Please love her," Ryan quoted quietly. The words burned into his memory. That's what Jessica told me. She said the baby was left with just that note, like someone was desperate but couldn't keep her. Sophia's legal team worked through the night, but it was an old janitor who provided the breakthrough. He'd been emptying trash when he overheard them talking about March 3rd, 2016. He approached hesitantly, work-worn hands twisting his cap. "I remember that night," he said slowly in accented English. "Bad car accident, young mother all alone, screaming for her baby. Never seen someone fight so hard. But there was this older lady, looked rich, all diamonds and fur coat. She kept telling the doctors to let nature take its course. Made my skin crawl. The way she talked about that baby like a problem to be solved." "What did she look like?" Sophia asked urgently, gripping the man's arm. Tall silver hair, like a helmet. Wore diamonds even in the emergency room. Heard her on the phone, telling someone that her daughter's mistake had been handled. Said the family reputation was safe. Cold as winter, that one. Sophia sank into a metal folding chair that probably hadn't been replaced since the hospital opened. "My mother, Victoria Williams. She was here that night." The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. A young woman hemorrhaging, unconscious from blood loss and trauma. A baby who'd stopped breathing but was resuscitated. The crossed-out notes proved that. A grandmother who saw an opportunity to clean up what she considered a scandal. Money changing hands, records altered, a supposedly dead infant becoming an abandoned Jane Doe in another ward just after midnight. But Jessica, Ryan struggled to understand how his sister fit into this twisted puzzle. How did my sister end up with Lena? The administrator pulled more records, cross-referencing timestamps and ward assignments. Jessica Mitchell was working pediatric emergency that night. She'd just returned from bereavement leave, says here she lost a pregnancy at 20 weeks. She was scheduled for grief counseling through the hospital. She filed adoption papers for the Jane Doe infant within 72 hours. "She saved me," Lena said softly, awake now, processing information with that too sharp intelligence. The aunt who became my first mom. She used to cry when she held me, telling me I was her miracle. She said I was the answer to prayers she hadn't known how to pray. Dawn broke gray and uncertain as they sat in Sophia's office, surrounded by evidence of the unthinkable. DNA tests had been rushed through, another benefit of unlimited resources, confirming what their hearts already knew. Lena was Luna, The daughter Sophia had mourned for 8 years had been alive all along, raised by the very nurse who'd been working the night of her birth, loved by a Navy SEAL who'd given up everything to be her father. Victoria Williams arrived at her daughter's summons, stepping from her Bentley into the executive conference room with practiced elegance. She surveyed the scene, Sophia's tear-stained face, the large black man holding a familiar-looking child, the scattered medical records, and sighed like someone forced to deal with tedious necessity. "So, you finally found out," she said simply, settling into a chair as if discussing stock options rather than stolen years. She smoothed her St. John's suit, every movement calculated. "I wondered when this day would come. I assume you want explanations." "You told me she died." Sophia's voice was deadly quiet, the calm before devastation. "You let me believe I'd lost my baby. You let me plan a funeral for an empty coffin." "I told you what you needed to hear to move forward," Victoria corrected, examining her manicured nails. "Look what you've accomplished, darling. Would you have built this empire with an infant to raise? Would you have become the youngest female CEO in Silicon Valley while changing diapers? I gave you the gift of focus." "You stole my daughter!" Sophia screamed, 8 years of suppressed rage erupting like a volcano. The windows rattled with the force of her pain. "You stole her life, my life, our life together. I gave you both better lives." Victoria remained unmoved, carved from the same stone as her ancestors' mausoleums. The child was adopted by a loving nurse who couldn't have children. You became successful beyond measure. Everyone won. Except for the crying, Lena spoke up, fixing her grandmother with those extraordinary eyes that seemed to see through facades to rotting foundations. "She cried for me every night. I cried for her. We felt each other across the city, empty spaces where we should have been together. That's not winning, that's surviving." Victoria looked at her granddaughter for the first time, something flickering behind the ice. Recognition, perhaps, or the ghost of regret. "You look like Sophia at that age. Same stubborn chin, same unfortunate idealism." "I forgive you," Lena said simply, words carrying weight beyond her years. "Because being angry won't give us back the years. But you need to leave now. We have a family to build, and you're not part of it." The lawyers presented options over the next hours. Sophia had grounds for criminal charges, fraud, conspiracy, kidnapping. Civil suits could destroy what remained of Victoria's empire. Full custody claims would be ironclad with DNA evidence. Ryan sat silently through the presentations, knowing he had no legal standing against a biological mother with unlimited resources. 8 years of being Lena's only parent meant nothing on paper. Love wasn't legally binding. But Sophia surprised everyone, waving away the sharks in suits. "No courts, no scandals. Lena's been through enough upheaval." "What are you saying?" Ryan asked wearily, arms tightening around Lena. "I'm saying she needs stability. She needs the father who's raised her and the mother she's been dreaming of. We'll figure it out together." "Together?" Ryan echoed, not daring to hope. "We're from different worlds, Sophia. You live in penthouses. We live paycheck to paycheck. You run boardrooms. I teach suburban moms how to do squats. Oil and water don't mix." "You gave up your military career to raise my daughter," Sophia countered, steel in her voice. "You learned to braid hair and host tea parties. You loved her when I couldn't. That makes you remarkable in any world." The custody arrangement evolved organically over the following weeks, defying legal conventions and social expectations. Sophia bought a modest 4-bedroom house in Palo Alto, close to Lena's school. Not a mansion, despite what her accountant recommended for tax purposes, just a real home with a yard and an art studio where Lena could create. Ryan resisted at first, pride warring with practicality, until Lena asked if having 2 homes meant choosing between parents. "Never," both adults said simultaneously, then shared a rueful smile that bridged more than they realized. They established routines with the careful precision of peace treaties. Breakfast together before school, Sophia learning that Lena needed exactly 3 reminder calls before actually getting dressed. Ryan handled morning drop-off because he knew all the teachers' names and remembered their birthdays. Sophia managed pickup when her schedule allowed. slowly becoming familiar with the intricate social dynamics of third grade. Dinner as a family unit, navigating from awkward strangers to something approaching friendship. Sophia learned parenting from Ryan's patient example. He never made her feel incompetent, even when she put Lena's shirt on backward or forgot that Wednesday was library day. He taught her the secret language of parenthood, how to distinguish between real tears and dramatic tears, how to negotiate vegetable consumption with the skill of international diplomats, how to set boundaries with love instead of authority. She discovered that Lena hated having her hair brushed, but would tolerate it while listening to audiobooks about female scientists. That she needed exactly 3 stuffed animals to sleep: Mr. Buttons the bear, Princess Whiskers the cat, and a threadbare elephant named Peanut that had been Jessica's. That she still sucked her thumb when deeply concentrating on art, a habit Ryan had never tried to break because some comforts were necessary. Ryan watched Sophia transform from corporate titan to gentle mother with wonder that deepened daily. She'd arrive from board meetings, still vibrating with strategic energy, then immediately change into paint-splattered clothes for art time. She learned Lena's favorite songs, memorizing lyrics to K-pop bands he'd never heard of. She remembered the names of every classmate, their allergies, their family situations. Money might have made logistics easier, but love did the real work of building trust. "She's not trying to replace you," Lena told Ryan one evening as they watched Sophia attempt to help with Common Core math homework, her billion-dollar brain struggling with third-grade methodology. "She just wants to add to us, like how you add ingredients to make cookies better." "When did you get so wise?" Ryan ruffled her soft curls, marvel and mystery combined. "When I got 2 parents who put me first," Lena replied, simply, returning to her homework with the satisfied air of someone who'd solved an important equation. The feelings crept in gradually, like morning fog in San Francisco Bay. Sophia found herself looking forward to Ryan's arrival each morning, the way his presence filled their kitchen with warmth and easy laughter. She admired his integrity, how he'd never taken advantage of her wealth, insisting on contributing what he could. He still worked his personal training clients, still drove his old Camry, still wore the same cologne that probably came from Target but smelled like safety and strength combined. She noticed smaller things too, how he automatically made her coffee exactly right, 2 milks, half a sugar, cinnamon on top. How he sang unconsciously while cooking, classic rock mixed with Disney soundtracks. How his scarred, dark brown hands, marked by years of service, were infinitely gentle with Lena's hair. How he looked in the golden afternoon light, reading stories with different voices for every character. Lena curled against his chest like she'd found the safest place in the universe. Ryan noticed how Sophia's corporate mask dissolved around Lena, revealing a woman who sang silly songs about bath time and wasn't above food fights when Lena started them. He saw her vulnerability, the way she sometimes watched Lena sleep with tears streaming down her face, making up for lost moments by memorizing present ones. He admired how she never complained about the adjustment, never mentioned that she'd given up a penthouse for a suburban house, never made him feel less than for earning in a year what she made in a day. He noticed smaller things too. How she bit her lip when concentrating, the same expression Lena made over difficult homework. How she couldn't cook but tried anyway, following YouTube tutorials with scientific precision. How she looked in old jeans and his navy sweatshirt more beautiful than in designer gowns. How she laughed, really laughed, at Lena's jokes, throwing her head back with abandon that belonged to a woman discovering joy after a long drought. "I'm falling for you," he admitted one night after Lena was asleep. They sat on the porch swing he'd installed, summer stars bright overhead, cricket symphonies providing soundtrack. The words came without planning, truth-demanding voice. "Not because you're Lena's mother, because you're you. Because you eat takeout with the same focus you bring to billion-dollar deals. Because you learned every Pokemon name to understand Lena's obsession. Because you're the strongest person I know, and you choose to be gentle." Sophia leaned into his solid warmth, feeling safe for the first time since that hospital room 8 years ago. "I never expected this," any of this. I thought I'd lost my capacity to love after losing Luna. I built walls so high I forgot there was a world outside them. But you both brought me back to life. You showed me that family isn't just about DNA, it's about choosing each other every day. Their first kiss tasted like hope and second chances, witnessed by the moon that had watched over all their separated years. It was gentle and certain, a promise made by two people who understood that love wasn't just feeling, but choosing, not just passion, but partnership. The proposal came 8 months later in the park, where Lena had learned to ride a bike without training wheels. They'd spent the morning there, Sophia conquering her fear of roller skates, while Ryan jogged alongside, catching her when she wobbled. Lena documented everything on Sophia's phone, announcing she was making a movie about my parents being weird but cute. "Marry me," Ryan said simply, dropping to one knee while Lena squealed with delight. No elaborate setup, no flash mob or skywriting, just a man who'd learned that love was in small moments, not grand gestures. Not for Lena, though she's threatened to make our lives miserable if I don't ask. But because I love you. Because you've made us whole. Because I want to wake up every morning knowing you're there. Because you're my partner, my equal, my everything. Sophia said yes through tears that tasted like healing, accepting a simple silver band engraved with family that Lena had helped design. "It matches my bracelet," Lena explained proudly. "See, we're all connected now." The wedding was intimate. 20 guests in the backyard Sophia had learned to love. Lena served as flower girl, ring bearer, and efficient assistant, reading a poem she'd written about families born from love rather than tradition. Martha, the night nurse who'd saved Lena years ago by alerting Jessica to the abandoned baby, attended with tears of joy. She'd lived with guilt for 8 years, wondering if she'd done right. Seeing them together released something in her weathered heart. Even Jessica's memory was honored with a candle lit for the woman whose compassion had preserved their miracle. Ryan spoke about his sister during the ceremony, how she'd always believed in fate and purpose. She used to say, "Some souls are meant to find each other, no matter how twisted the path." Jessica kept Lena safe until her real story could begin. I think she knew somehow. I think that's why she made me promise to let Lena find her truth when the time came. "Some families are born," the officiant said, words carefully chosen for their unique situation. "Others are forged through loss, hope, and the courage to love again." Today, we witness not just a marriage, but a culmination. 3 paths that wandered separately before weaving into something stronger than any could be alone. They honeymooned at home, unwilling to leave Lena, even with trusted babysitters. Instead, they had adventures in their own city. Tourist attractions they'd never visited, beaches they'd never explored, restaurants where Lena could wear her light-up shoes without judgment. They were just another family making memories, extraordinary only in how ordinary they'd become. A year later, as autumn painted the trees gold and rust, Lena presented her latest art project to her 4th grade class. She'd grown taller but kept the same otherworldly beauty, the same startling intelligence that saw through surface to soul. The title read, "My Miracle Family," above a vibrant painting that captured their essence better than any photograph. "This is my dad," she explained proudly to her classmates, pointing to Ryan's figure. "He's the strongest man in the world, but his hands are gentle. He used to be a soldier, but now he teaches people how to be healthy. He makes the best pancakes and gives the best hugs and never gets mad when I need one more story at bedtime. This is my mom," she continued, indicating Sophia. "She runs a big company, but always has time for bedtime stories. She's teaching me to code and paint and believe in myself. She smells like flowers and sunshine and home. She was lost for a while, but we found each other. This is me in the middle," Lena smiled, "because I brought them together. And this," she pointed to a 4th figure, "is my baby brother. He's still in mommy's tummy, but he's already part of us. He's lucky because he'll never have to miss anyone. We're all here waiting for him." The painting won first place in the district art show, but the real prize was the life it represented. That evening, Sophia sat in the nursery they'd painted together, soft gray walls with stars Ryan had stenciled, furniture they'd assembled while arguing about instructions, clothes Lena had helped select. She read Lena's letter to her unborn brother, written in careful cursive on paper, decorated with hearts and stars. Dear baby brother, you're so lucky. You'll never have to wonder where you belong or dream about missing pieces. Mommy will sing to you every night, and her voice is like magic that makes bad dreams go away. Daddy will teach you to be strong and kind, and his hugs can fix anything that's broken. I'll show you how to paint and tell you stories about how we all found each other. Because sometimes families break apart, but love always finds a way to put them back together. Just like Daddy found Mommy for me, and we all found our way home. Love, your big sister, Lena. P.S. I hope you like dinosaurs, because I already bought you a lot of dinosaur stuff. Ryan wrapped his arms around both his girls as moonlight streamed through the window, illuminating the silver bracelet now displayed in a shadow box, a reminder that some circles, once broken, can be made whole again through faith, hope, and the enduring power of love that refuses to let go. Below it hung 3 photos, Jessica holding newborn Lena, Sophia in the hospital just after giving birth, and their wedding day, past and present reconciled, pain transformed to purpose. Other frames along the hallway showed their black family laughing on beaches, blowing out birthday candles and dancing in the kitchen, proof that joy had taken root where grief once lived. Do you think he'll have the birthmark? Lena asked, patting Sophia's growing belly with proprietary pride. Maybe, Sophia answered, covering Lena's hand with her own. But even if he doesn't, he'll still be ours. Just like Daddy doesn't have the birthmark, but he's still family. Because DNA doesn't make family, Lena recited their oft-repeated phrase, love does. That's right, baby, Ryan agreed, kissing both their heads. Love does. Outside, the same moon that had witnessed their separation now blessed their union, full and bright with promise. In the distance, the city lights of San Francisco twinkled like earthbound stars, each one representing a life, a story, a possibility. But inside the modest house in Palo Alto, 3 souls who had wandered far had finally found their way home to each other, proving that sometimes the longest journeys lead to the sweetest arrivals, and that love, patient and persistent, always finds a way to complete its circle.